Welcome back.
I had too
Welcome.
much stuff there. I couldn't find it.
Welcome back. Welcome back. How you doing?
I'm good, man. You?
Not too bad. I know you had a couple rough days ahead of you. Kind
I've
of,
had a bad. I've had a couple of bad days.
yeah, a couple of smacked around by some things like car trouble, and that
Yep.
can be such a pain.
Dude, it was the timing more than anything.
It was a terrible timing. We had
It
a
was the
great day in the
timing.
woods too. We
We
had a
had a
great
great
day in the
day.
woods.
Everything was good. I was heading home, and kaput.
Yeah,
It's just
just
you
in
wouldn't believe how mad I was.
less than a mile from your house too.
Yeah.
That is, that makes me mad. That makes me mad.
Oh,
Well, I, no, I'm not even close as mad as you are. I know. I know. I
no.
know. I know. I want to thank everybody for coming back and joining us and being a part of our show and taking the time out of their night to hang out with us tonight. We have a really, really, really incredible guest. This feels, um, it's kind of nostalgia for me because, Doug Hajicek, he was a producer for Monster Quest, and I never missed an episode. Um,
No, that
there
was
were
one of my favorite shows.
there were very few things that I missed, and one of them was Monster Quest, and one was Steve Irwin.
Hmm.
Um, and um, those were my go tos. Those were shows that I just could not get enough of, and to have Doug here tonight is a blessing for me for sure. Um, Doug's done a lot of things. I'm going to read a little bit of his bio for people, and forgive me if I stumble over words because they're words, and I stumble over words. Little bio on Doug. Doug Hajicek is a successful television documentary series producer and television show creator, committed to bringing daring voices and innovative ideas to the screen. He is respected in the industry as a cutting edge credentialed technologist, camera systems inventor, wildlife researcher, and inventor, documenting never before seen behaviors in animals such as black bears, beavers, fish, and invertebrates. His team capturing the first ever footage of a free swimming true giant squid in its natural environment for the History Channel, as seen in Predators of the Deep, a 2 hour TV special. His hit series Monster Quest about cryptids is what he's best known for. Although Hajicek has also created many TV series over the last 36 years, Hajicek also has created Mysterious Encounters TV series, Sasquatch Legend Meets Science. He has now produced over 300 TV episodes and features over the last 36 years. Doug also consults for numerous other series, including the new In Search of series on the History Channel, The Proof is Out There, and Les Stroud's Survivor Man Bigfoot TV series as a tech director. Hajicek is also sought out to repurpose technologies for hundreds of TV show episodes for major networks. He also now produces the Untold Radio Network, focusing on the many cryptid mysteries. Hangar One Publishing was started by Hajicek and his sons with the goal of publishing the best cryptid related books using new technologies to bring video and audio to life in print and ebooks. So, for the people that are watching that just heard me read that, that was page one of 21 for his bio. We haven't scratched the surface of what this man's done, where he's been, and what he's accomplished. Um, and I forgot all about him being a part of the squid, the giant squid. I watched that thing in awe. Had no idea. Had no idea. He's probably a part of so many things that I've seen that we just don't know. Doug's a busy, busy dude, and we're not going to keep him waiting. But I really want to bring him on and let everybody meet him. We're going to talk Sasquatch. We're going to talk tech. We're going to talk his travels and things he's seen over the world, um, and just learn. We're here to learn, man. Let's bring on Doug.
Hey guys,
Hey,
Bud,
Doug, how
how
you
are
doing?
you?
good. A little under the weather today, but
I'm
I'm
sorry to hear
okay.
that, man.
If I have to disappear, I might have to blow my nose. But I just found out I only have 2 Kleenexes left.
Oh
That's how my
no.
day's going.
That means he's only disappearing twice.
Yeah. So if I
Yeah,
disappear for 2 minutes, I'm looking for a box of Kleenex.
yeah, I
And
understand that. Well,
but yeah, then we had pipes burst because we're in below zero conditions up here in Minnesota, and it got down to like 20 below last night.
Oh, Doug,
So
that sounds
it's
terrible.
Yeah, life happens.
We moved away. We moved away from the cold, man. We lived in Illinois, Central Illinois. Both of Bobby and I lived in Central Illinois. Now we both live down here in Florida. We moved away from that cold.
I don't
that
even
mess.
want to hear the word Florida right now.
Jen,
I have a word for you guys, and it starts with A, ends in E.
I know which word that is.
Yeah.
My father called me that because I called him late last week.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's cold up here. I'm like, Dad, man, it's not great down here. We got like 7-8 inches of sunshine. And he called me the same word.
Oh, that's too funny.
that's
Yeah.
the nicest name he's
Too
ever called you,
funny.
Jim.
It is the nicest name he's ever called me.
Well, you're up here, and I'm like, why do I live here? And then spring comes, May comes, and everything's so beautiful, and the weather is so perfect, and all the trees are flowered and blossomed, and it's just everything's so lush and green and beautiful. And then I go, oh, I know why I live here.
I'm not going to say anything, but it's lush and green all year round down here. So
Yeah, I know. I'm thinking that naughty word again for you guys.
Sorry. I want to touch base on the Monster Quest thing just before we go any further, because that was a staple of my go-to anytime it came on. There were so many episodes on there that it took me somewhere else. I had a childhood encounter where 2 were within 5 feet of me.
Oh, wow.
And I mentioned before, if you wanted me to come on your show and talk about it sometime, I'd love to.
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah, we'll get you booked.
But it took me somewhere else when these episodes of Monster Quest were on, and it opened up the belief that I wasn't crazy. There were other people out there that had this, but I did have a pretty nasty, abusive childhood. And my birth mother was the monster every day. So my encounter was locked away. It was just locked away and forgot about until a trigger word triggered it all out. But with Monster Quest, I think, how big of a success was that show? Because for me, it was everything.
Well, I like to think of the success of Monster Quest attributed to the fact that my intentions were not to just produce a show. It's a great topic, cool topic, let's just do a show like most of the other ones. It was, I get to have a budget for my research. So research first, producer second.
Gotcha.
I knew I had to do a good show, but I figured that if my heart was only in finding answers for whatever topic we were covering, it would be a better show. And that's the magic that you can't really quantify, because it just led. Every show is full of my curiosity, and I wished each show could have been longer than an hour. Which is like 50 minutes, a little under 50 minutes for each show.
Yeah.
And so it was just a fantasy for me to have the budget, almost any, to do the forensics, to hire the people I needed to go and do something or collect something or prove something or not, you know what I mean? And it was a big hit for them. The reason Monster Quest even happened is I was pitching a show called Giganto, and nobody was interested in it. History had no interest. Discovery had no interest. TLC had no interest. Animal Planet, no interest. And then one day I was watching TV, and there was a Peter Jackson commercial came on for his new King Kong movie. And I went, oh, I have it. Giganto, the real King Kong. So I called my agent, gave him the new idea for the show because he had been turned down. And he goes, God, yeah, that might really breathe some life into the pitch. And so he sold it the next day.
Nice.
And so I did that. I did that show. A lot of people haven't seen. Have you seen Giganto, the
I've
Real King Kong?
I've never heard of it. Now
It's
I want to.
weird.
Is
Yeah,
it
it
what?
was narrated by Ed Herman, the actor Ed Herman.
Mhm.
Great actor. He narrated it. The show came out amazing. I think it's my best work. I still do, but no one's seen it.
What network was it on?
On History.
History. Okay.
Yeah, it was on History Channel. Basically, you got to think of it as the pilot for Monster Quest. They called me the next morning. They got their overnight ratings, and it had shattered every record they had ever, in the ratings. So they called me and they go, "Can you do more of these?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, of course." And so then, literally that day, we proceeded to work out a contract. Came up with a new title, Monster Quest, and that's how it was born. But I do not know why they're keeping that episode under wraps.
Okay. So you can't find it.
I try to find it.
Okay.
I don't know
I'll do
if
some
they've
digging.
forgotten about
I'll get a
it.
hold of my people.
Yeah. Get your people to call my
I don't-
people and
I don't have any
and
people.
Bobby's
I-
people.
Bobby's my people. Bobby's my people.
I have a DVD copy of it, but that's the only record I have of that show.
Ah, jeez.
It's weird. So you see if you can find it. And
I'll
I
be
do
looking
wonder
for
if
it tonight.
I wonder if it wasn't just an oversight that it never got put up on YouTube, or it never, I don't know, or maybe it had something to do with Ed Herman. He's passed on.
Oh yeah.
Maybe there was a contract issue with the narration. I don't know. I'm just
Maybe, yeah.
speculating. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But I do know, I think it was my best work. But that's what launched it. And then Monster Quest became a big, record-setting a hit for them. It just, was doubling their highest ratings they'd ever gotten. We had, Mercedes as a sponsor. We had like Outback restaurants. A lot of high-end sponsors. It went really good. And then, bless their hearts, American Pickers pitched a show to History. If you know that show, I think everybody knows American Pickers. A great show. And Pawn Stars had pitched a show. And those two shows kicked me out of my time slot. And they were great. And they were great shows.
Yeah.
They really were.
They weren't as good as Monster Quest.
Well,
I don't think so. I mean,
and so that's kind of the history of kind of what happened. And then we ended up with an executive producer. I don't think they liked the topic. Different from my first executive producer that loved the topic that we had. I won't mention any names, and so the show went down despite its high ratings, and it's performing as good now on YouTube in other countries as it did when it was brand new, guys. So,
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So what was how did you get to the leap of the giant squid? Was that just a spin-off from Monster Quest?
Yeah, that was just a Monster Quest episode, and it was something, once again, I wanted to do because I had already been down to the Sea of Cortez for Discovery Channel, and we were doing a show called The Red Devil, or Rojo Diablo in Spanish. So we were doing that, and I snuck a 1,000-foot of cable and a big mylar lure I made that was, it was like 4 feet long. I just snuck this stuff in the gear that was all getting transported down to the Sea of Cortez. And I thought, well, I know we're going to be traveling from point A to point B to point, C and blah, blah, blah. And while everybody's sleeping or whatever, I know how these things go. I'm usually the only one up on deck. Everybody's snoring or sleeping. And I thought, well, I'm going to see if I can hook into a big squid, because I suspected they were in the Sea of Cortez. I knew there were a lot of Humboldt squid there. There was plenty of food. And to me, a giant squid would either be a Humboldt that had gotten out of its niche, like a female that never laid eggs, because squid don't live that long. Normally they die off quick, 2 years, 3 years, they're dead because they breed. Kind of like salmon, salmon, they breed and then they die.
Yeah.
But I had this theory that females, certain ones would, very rarely, but some of them would get out of their niche. And there may be a huge Humboldt or some other type of squid that had gotten out of its niche in the Sea of Cortez. So I throw out my cable, I lower it all down, I had heavy weight on it, and I have a camera on this big mylar. Basically, it looked like if you guys are fishermen, a curly tail.
I
You
know
ever
what
use
that is.
curly tail, those
Yep.
Yeah.
little
Yep.
PVC jigs?
Hmm.
Okay. So it looked really cool. I lowered it down and kept going. I probably got down to about 700 feet. Nobody knew I'm doing this. I'm alone. And I got a tarp over me. I got like a big tarp over me on deck. And I'm looking at the monitor live. I got 700 feet down. All of a sudden, a huge tentacle hits the camera. And I'm like, oh, crap. And then the cable, 600-pound tensile string Kevlar cord cable I was using. All of a sudden, I see the railing on the boat start bending because I have it wrapped around that railing and starts bending and snap. And it just tore the 600-pound test cable off.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, crap. And I had seen that tentacle hit, but I didn't have time to really study the footage. So I went back and I went under the tarp again, rewound it, and looked, and it was definitely a squid that hit that lure I made. And I went, okay. So there was not much I could do because I didn't really want to give this. I was down there. I was a hired camera guy, right? And I really didn't at that point want to give up my idea to other people.
Yeah.
Because I figured, well, in the future, I'll just keep this in the back of my mind. Someday when I get a chance, I'm going to come back down, see a Cortez, hire the right people, blah, blah, blah. And this time it'll be for, something, a project I'm doing. So we did that and it worked. And the rest is history. So it kind of, I already knew it was going to work. But then on the same token, it's been tried by other crews. Zero. They haven't gotten anything. So maybe I was just, it's that 1 in 50-year luck where lightning hit twice, but no one else has been able to do it.
That's awesome.
So
I
there you
remember.
go.
I remember watching and thinking, yeah, that looks pretty big, but I had no idea until watching further. Well, how are you guys going to gauge that? And then you had the one gentleman on there that talked about where
Yeah.
the eye was to the beak was, and over 60 feet. That's
And Peter
enormous.
Schmitz,
Yeah.
they did all the measuring. And the thing, if you watch the show Predators of the Deep, so they produced another 2-hour show on that based on that footage. And then they verified that was a Architeuthis dux and was the first giant squid ever filmed. So that got confirmed by numerous scientists in that show.
Yeah.
It took them years. I was wondering, why didn't they make more of a big deal out of this? It's a huge,
Right.
huge breakthrough. I mean, you have no idea the money that's been spent to get this done. And they did finally. And the crew, they re-interviewed some of the crew and blah, blah, blah. And that came out, I don't know if that was 2014, 15, 16. I don't remember the year. But it was cool to, finally get that all verified and whatnot. Yeah. And I had an amazing crew. I mean, you got to remember, it isn't just me. It's a team of the right people.
Mm-hmm.
All these things are team efforts. And in fact, I had utilized one of the main guys, Scott, was the main guy on that first expedition I did for Discovery. I was just a lowly camera guy though, and Scott was one of the divers on that one. But anyhow, so I just kind of took him because I know he was amazing.
Was he the one that got in the water with the Humboldt?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. He was a Navy SEAL guy who was just an extremely experienced deep sea diver and had probably more time in a diving bell than anybody on the planet. And he was just pretty fearless and also very knowledgeable about Humboldt squid and where they would be. And once again, so the whole idea was that I felt the Humboldts go up and down the water column, but the huge giant ones can't. They're too big. Their blood would boil. They have to stay down deep, and so they become cannibals. They wait for these smaller squid to just travel up and down the water column after food, And then when they come down, they get attacked by these monsters, basically the krakens that we don't ever see because they're down 1,000 foot. And the only time when they wash up, we've all seen dead ones wash up. It's because as soon as they come up, they're dead. I mean, they fall apart. They basically their blood boils and they're dead. That's why no one has ever seen a live one. Seen dead ones. They've filmed dead ones and got dead ones up, but not a live one in its natural habitat. So that's kind of the simple of the story. But in a lot of ways, all I had was an idea. I couldn't have done anything without all these other people. But it's really cool, guys, that when you get other people interested in your dumb idea, right? That's when it's cool. So the key is you definitely want to talk people into doing stuff, right? To help you.
Right.
And that's what I did when I was a kid all the time. I was that dumb kid that would go, hey, let's walk down the railroad tracks for the next 5 days and see where it goes. Yeah, I'd be
You were the kid that got everybody else in trouble.
I was the one that got everybody in trouble all the time. Oh my God. I would come up with the stupidest ideas for us to do when I was a kid. But I was good at talking people into doing things, all for good intentions. I always liked adventure and like doing stuff.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what I did during the entire Monster Quest. I had to talk people into, hey, let's do this. Let's, calling this scientist and that. So, the more members and the more steps there are to a project, including looking for whether it's Bigfoot or whatever you want to look for, the more steps, the bigger chance you're going to have for success. And the more people involved, not the less people.
Right.
Keeping secrets and not, it's like, oh, me and Billy will just do it or me or whatever. That's not the way to go. The way to go is to get a 6, 7, 8 person team where they all have different skills and really communicate and talk and figure stuff out and argue. And, that's when Bigfoot will get filmed properly.
Yeah.
Now,
when you've been involved with researching Bigfoot, where's it taken you?
I'd say it's taken me on I feel like the coyote in the Roadrunner cartoon. Yeah, it's been a wild ride. I've been doing this for years. Since the 90s when I first found footprints started, which was really life-changing. I knew when I saw those footprints, and I remember walking out beyond the stand of tree and seeing a footprint in front of the tree trunk and one behind it, and I know that stepped over the tree. And I'm like, this is life-changing. I need answers. And so that's what I've been on, just trying to pursue, my own curiosity. So like when you have a sighting, and I don't know if you have yet, Bobby. Have you?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
Well, that's why you're here, Steve.
It was very brief. Very brief.
Yeah.
It was a road crossing sighting.
Yeah.
But he wasn't crossing the road. I was crossing going past the crossroads, and he was standing 30, 40 yards down the
crossroads. But still, it was life-changing for you, and it's why you're sitting next to Jimmy.
Yeah, and it was broad daylight.
Yeah.
11.
I mean, think of all the things you guys could be doing different right now, right?
Broad daylight from 30 to 40 yards away. So
he was on the phone with me when it happened.
Yeah. But think of all the other things you could be pursuing. Instead, you're stuck talking to some old man here in a podcast. You could be doing a million other things, but you've chosen to do because you're obsessed, just like I am.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you're going to get the answer, but, I'm not going to quit. I've got all sorts of things left to try. But, yeah, it's been a lifelong bunch of frustration, but yet along the way, I've met so many cool people. And it's brought me to connect other dots. And so I still have things I want to try.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give up. I've been so close. I've had these things standing on my camera, standing on top of them. And yet I still haven't gotten the damn footage. So I know I'm getting closer to figuring this out along with some other really smart people. But, it's really up to everybody listening. You just got to take a multi-step approach. And the more steps, the better. You know,
Yeah.
it won't be just slapping a camera up on a tree.
Yeah.
It's not
No.
going to do it.
Yeah. We haven't had much luck with that.
Yeah, no, I haven't either, and I've tried everything. But to give you an example, the last story that where I got made a fool out of, we were up at Snellgrove and we had taken these little small AI cameras, real tiny, and put Vex Hex. Is it Hex or Vex? The stuff that blocks RF signals, radio signals.
Oh, God, what is
EMF
that?
blocks it. I don't know if it's Hex or Vex, whatever.
Kevlar? Is it Kevlar?
Well, it's like, yeah, it's got carbon in it and it kind of a woven aluminum fibers, so it blocks EMF.
Or
And
Mylar? No, it's not Mylar.
I
It's something Lar.
well, you can buy this cloth. When we wrapped the cameras, glued it
Yeah.
all on, a whole bunch of them. We brought Starlink up. We're almost in the Arctic. We're really far away from people. I know the areas had a history of Bigfoot. I've experienced them up there numerous times, and the time of year is crucial. We're up there the right time of year. Everything's perfect. Got the cameras wrapped in hex where they're all camouflaged. They're hidden so well, Jimmy. I could say, there it is, right there within that 5-foot area, and you could spend the whole day and you wouldn't have found them. So we had a whole bunch of them out, and we're monitoring them live. And all of a sudden, I hear a rock hit one of them. They knew exactly where the first camera was. They're throwing a rock at it. And then another one gets hit, and then another one. So they threw rocks at all the cameras, basically going, you guys are idiots. We know where your cameras are. And then we heard what sounded like talking on the mics on one of these little cameras. Did you ever hear this? I could find it and play it
No.
for you. It's really weird. It sounds very keep in mind where we are, there's not even any radio waves, right? There's nothing.
Wow.
And we did everything, even after we heard it, we even went through and took an RF scanner looking for any possible radio waves up there. Just give me 1 second here and I'll find it. It was really freaked us out. We all kind of turned white because I've heard gibberish kind of off in the distance, but I've never heard anything that's like this. This should be it here. Just give me 1 second here.
Sure. I know that every time I put audio out, Doug, audio recorders out, I will hide them so you can't see them, so nobody can see them. Only I know where they're at.
Right.
But it seems like almost 100% of the time, something ends up messing with the audios that I put out, like literally coming up and tapping on the recorders, and I've got them hidden. Sometimes I think that I've lost them. I've hid them so well they're just slid down farther where I put them.
So you've heard
coming?
What have you heard?
Something tapping. I've got recording. I put one in a palm tree right on the side of a trail because I've gone this area and I've got knocked as soon as I get out of my truck over in this cypress kind of area, and so I put the recorder in a place where it would go down this trail, down that trail, and the cypress in front where I was hearing the knocks.
Right.
And during the night, something walked over. It was a bipedal. Something walked over, and it sat down, and then it stood up. You could hear that's what it sounded like. It sat down. You could hear the brush crunch, and you can hear it seemed like something stood up, and then it peed for like 40 seconds.
Yeah, I've heard
Just
that too.
Non-stop peeing for 40 seconds, and it
Marking
happened
its territory.
It happened a couple times in the same spot, and then a tree gets pushed over that sounded like it almost hit the camera. I mean, not the camera, the audio recording. So my son Lan and I, we went back, and we found the tree directly behind the tree that it was on. There was 2 laid down spots, but they weren't very big. Like a medium doe sized, and the other one was a little smaller. But the peeing for so long, and then the tree getting knocked over. If those were deer and that tree got knocked over, I think we would have heard them run off. but we never heard anything. Actually, in the recording, we never heard anything leave. We heard something approach, but we never heard anything leave. And it just seems like every time within 45 minutes to an hour of leaving these recording devices, next thing you know, we hear tapping on it like something's playing, you know what I mean, with it.
So you hear like bananas. A finger hitting it or little pebbles hitting it or what?
It almost sounds like something's messing with it.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like. But they're hidden. So there's palm trees down here that have like scales that go up and they cross.
Yeah.
What I will do is I will stuff a recorder down one of the scales, break or pick one off that's on the ground and place it on top so it creates a cover so it can't get wet, but you can't see it. It's a part of the tree. You know what I mean? And it does great. But these things get messed with almost 100% of the time shortly after we leave. And it seems like there's always something there messing with it right by it. Have you guys experienced that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. The exact same thing. I've heard the peeing. I was up at this cabin one time, and I was up there with my son and 4 other guys, and I hear peeing right out my window. And it just kept going on and on and on and on and on. Right where we would usually pee off the porch, we'd get too scared to go to the outhouse, right? So we'd pee off the porch, and it was obviously peeing right on the other side of that. And then the picnic table went flying, which takes like 2-3 guys to lift it.
Yeah.
And then it took a long fishing rod case that's like 7 foot long, huge diameter and just threw it at the cabin as hard as it could. You'd have to have hands to do that. So I know whatever it was peeing. I could have looked out the window and seen this. But for some reason, it's like terror grips you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know what it is. I've psyched myself up every time. And every time I fail this, it's right behind the curtain. Just open it up. There they are. We had like 4 or 5 of them hop up on the porch, run up. You could hear the bipedal running. Boom, 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 boom. And another one comes up. You can hear them running, jumping around the porch. And then one went under the cabin, was banging the floor. One was in the back of the cabin, hitting these high 12-foot high rafter, what do they call it? Studs that are hanging out the backside of the cabin going boom, 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 boom. I mean, you'd have to be really tall, 8 foot tall, plus your arm way up to hit those. Yeah. And yet we just sit there like idiots, paralyzed. And then a rock will hit the cabin, whatever. You're just paralyzed. You can't do anything. So here's this talking that came over this. So we're hearing a rock hit each camera. And then we hear this. I'll see if you can hear it. Hold on here. Hold on, let me turn my volume up. And it was very short, but very clear. You hear that?
Yeah.
It's just weird. You can say, well, it sounds like I'll talk with you. We don't know what it, but it's more gibberish. We've sent it to David, and apparently, it's got this fundamental missing. It's just weird. And, there were a couple guys in the camp thought, it's a ghost that's doing it. Okay, whatever. All I know is it came over one of the cameras. It was very near that camera. It had just thrown a rock at the camera, which is why we were all paying attention, because rocks were hitting our cameras, our hidden cameras. So anyhow, once again, I'm the coyote, and I've been, outfoxed by tenfold.
So
but we did get some interesting stuff.
In all your experience, you haven't laid eyes on one.
Oh God, yes. Oh yeah.
Don't hold back. Don't hold back, man. Don't hold back.
Yeah, but not there. I haven't seen any up there. Heard, like it's insane. But The last one that we saw, we were driving near an area where actually a guy that works for me had a sighting too. And it was just walking along the road in the kind of ditch area, maybe 15 feet off the side of the road, just walking right through all these saplings and alders, thick saplings and alders. I was just trudging right through them. They're just falling. I mean, you or I couldn't, we couldn't go a foot in that stuff. And and it was way above them. I mean, you could just see how big this thing was, but it wasn't extremely muscular. But the weird thing that stands out for both me and Yvette is that it had it was black and gray, but it had almost speckled hair all over its body. And when I say speckled, I hope to God somebody else sees one like this, almost like a starling bird is. Have you ever seen a starling?
Yeah.
There's certain types of starlings. They have these little their feathers are mottled. Yeah, very mottled look. Anyhow, it was absolutely beautiful. But we watched this thing plowing through the alders, and then it turns right real quick and goes into this wilderness area. And we're just stunned. I mean, you're just stunned because it's not what we expected. We made a 20-mile run to a bakery she likes to go to. That's all we were doing. We weren't looking for Bigfoot, although we had to drive past that area where there's been a lot of activity. And we do pay extra attention when we're driving through there. It's an area where there's no camping, no hunting. Nobody's allowed in this particular area. It's been barbed wired off for 150 years. There's water, there's islands. It's quite thick. And it's just a no man's land. Apparently it's owned by a hunting club. It's many acres. And it's corridored and connected to a vast wilderness area, right? So I think they just punch in there at times. But there's been numerous sightings in there, including my best friend had one walk right in front of his truck, kind of an auburn-colored one, right in front of his truck, and then step over a barbed wire fence and go into the woods. And he was so in disbelief. He says, "Did deer walk upright?" And I'm like, "No." And I'm like, "Do deer have broad shoulders?" And he goes, "Oh, yeah, it did have broad shoulders. It had really huge shoulders." And I said, "Well, it's not a deer." And I said, "What color was it?" And he pointed to a pair of dress shoes I have in a shoe rack. And he said, just like the lining in those shoes, which is like an orangutan kind of color, kind of this auburn red. And about a week and a half later, he was over again for a business meeting, and news, live on the news, another couple had seen it and filmed it exactly like 5 miles due east to where his sighting was. Then it was ducking under some trees. Some farmers, they dropped the footage off of the news thing. They wanted nothing to do with it, didn't want their names involved in it. And so I ran ads for months trying to find the people that had filmed this thing, and nobody ever responded. I never even got any crank responses. I was running big display ads in the newspaper.
Yeah.
Nothing. So there you go.
That's kind of telling in a way that for the simple fact that a lot of people why isn't there any people getting them cameras? There's cameras everywhere. There's cameras everywhere. People got cameras on their phones. People walking around with cameras. Why don't we have pictures of it? And here you are, somebody who is a seasoned veteran at filming in all kinds of conditions all over the world. And that was the last thing that came to your mind. When you see these things, the first thing you're not thinking of is grab a camera, because you're in disbelief. And even though you're out there looking for them and you see one, you're going to want to take everything in visually.
By the time you think, oh, that's a Bigfoot, and that takes a while to hit you. Mm-hmm. I mean, it doesn't just instantly go, oh, there's a Bigfoot. It doesn't work that way. It's, oh, there's a 8 foot tall. What is that? And it's gone. That's kind of the way it works.
Yeah. So when I get out of my truck, I've got 2 audio recorders going. Mm-hmm. I got the one on my shoulder strap, and I got the one that I'm going to leave. It's going at the same time. Um, I have a Sony cam that sits on my shoulder. It's 60 frames per second, 4K, and it's got a great little mic on it. I got 3 wood knocks from 190 yards away.
Good for you.
And then I got these sunglasses that have this little tiny camera right here
Oh, brilliant.
that records. It's 30 or 60 frame per second, 1080p. Where I look, it's looking and it's recording the whole time. The whole time. So when I get out, I've got 3 or 4 things recording, because I don't know how many times I got out of the car and heard a knock and like, damn it, I don't have anything on right now. But it also seems like when I got everything recording, I'm getting nothing. You know what I mean? It's
don't give up. You know,
no, absolutely not. Yeah,
don't give up.
Yeah, those glasses.
And once again, you're taking multiple steps. So if you do have something happen, you don't have your gear on, you're going to regret it for the rest of your life. So that day, I owned a trail or a dash cam, and I didn't have it in my car that day. Just regret.
Yeah.
And then we had another road sighting many years prior. Up there's an area a lake called Mille Lacs Lake in northern Minnesota, and it's a huge lake. Can't even see across it. It's a huge lake. A lot of wilderness around there. In fact, I know Finding Bigfoot did an episode right where we had a sighting. We were driving down the road. It was probably about 2 a.m, trying to come back from up north, and up ahead in my headlights, we think we see a moose on the side of the road. And we think the moose is waving its antlers back and forth. You've ever seen a moose, they're massive. Okay. And so, but as we got closer, I'm like, God, I don't think that's a moose. What the hell is it? As we got closer, the antlers suddenly now became arms. It had its arms extended out like this, and it was doing this weird hula motion. You know, it was doing this. And of course, if you can imagine something almost, 8 feet or even bigger than 8 feet, in my headlights of my car, and it's just waving its arms. You can see the hair hanging down, the arms. We could see the muscle. We could see the muscles. We could see then the fingers as we approached closer. And it looked like it was drying off. And it was really windy that night, but really hot. And it looked like it had just taken a swim in the lake and was just standing there drying off before it had to go back into the forest. And that's all I can imagine, because there was even a creek that came out of this there was a protected forest right where we saw it. So geographically, it made perfect sense. And so it wasn't doing a hula. It was just, I think it was waving its arms to dry off. There was no way it could have been anything else. But it had its back to us, guys. So you didn't get to see that face and all those details. But, boy, you see the back and the shoulder muscles and the hair. I don't know what else it could have been. And it just didn't give a damn. It was standing. I mean, it wasn't even a foot off the side of the road. It didn't care less. Couldn't care less.
Yeah.
So once again, we're just like two idiots. While we're approaching, what is that? By the time we figured it out,
it's gone.
It's 2-3 more seconds and you're past it.
Yeah.
And then we're like talking about it. And by the time we realized, we're 2-3 miles down the road. Once again, you think back and you're thinking, why didn't I do this? Don't know. Yeah.
Bobby and I don't want to speak for Bobby, but I think, we're in the same boat. We are family guys. We work, 40 plus hours a week. We have priorities at home and family to tend to, so we don't get out nearly as much as we'd like to. But when we do get out, I think we're productive when we get out. I mean, Bobby's got a Kubota, and I don't know how many miles we went Sunday.
30 or more.
Yeah. And it's nice to have something for like a Kubota when you're like when in the Ocala National Forest here in Florida. It's huge. If you're on foot, forget about it. It's going to take you all day to go a mile. And especially in this tick infested forest.
Yeah, and
Um,
that's like a side by side
Yeah.
UTV
yes. Hmm.
made
Correct.
by, is that Polaris or
Yep, made by
Kawasaki?
It's
Kubota.
Kubota.
Oh, Kubota makes it. Okay.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know. I know. I always think I'm going to get a side by side. I finally did about 3 years ago, um, and so they're cool. They're perfect for this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Plus, I do think that 4-stroke engine that they run. I've heard so many stories of that sound, that thump 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 that 4-strokes made. If you go slow with them, that will attract a Bigfoot. I don't know if you guys have heard that.
Oh,
Mm-mm. We have
I,
not.
I don't. I don't. My engine in my Kubota is a 3-cylinder Subaru engine. It's an engine that Subaru used to put in some of their small cars, but then when Kubota decided to buy that engine to put in their side by sides, they bought the rights to the engine.
Okay, is yours, Bobby? Is your Kubota the very quiet, almost like a golf cart?
Yeah, it's pretty
Oh, it's
quiet. I
really
mean,
quiet.
it's got a little bit of sound, but
A little bit of sound, yeah.
it's a car engine, so it's fairly
Okay.
quiet.
Well, my UTV is a cheaper one, and it's got it's got that thump thump
Yeah.
thump 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 thump. And
Now
I've
the
heard
diesel
just
Kubotas have that thump. They totally
Yeah.
have.
okay.
I shook my head no at first because I have a golf cart and it's battery, so it makes no noise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so now, yeah, I digress.
You
on
guys
that.
should think about getting like electric fat tire bikes. And they're just so stealthy and so quiet. You can go so fast on them,
I
and
do
you
have an
can,
e-bike,
yeah,
and you can cover some ground with it.
yeah. Do you have a fat tire one?
No, I mean
So what you want
the tires
is
about that wide, but
you want a mid drive which runs the chain, so you have all the gearing. A
Mhm.
mid drive fat tire bike, and then what I do with them is I mount a motorcycle dash cam system, so you have front and rear cameras on them, IR cameras. Then you have a little monitor, and you can even drive in the dark. But those are amazing tools, and I think God, if you're going to surprise one, you will, because we've surprised like a bobcat killing a rabbit right in
oh
front of
geez,
us because they don't know we're there. We
yeah,
just sneak up on it. Those are the kinds of things that are probably a really good future
investment,
research tool
yeah.
for people. You know,
Um,
it's like trolling for fish. The more area you can cover,
mhm.
probably the better chance you're going to have of an encounter.
Right. I mean, what I've noticed with the e-bike is, when you're looking on Google Earth and you want to get to a spot, and you think it's a great spot, but you got a 45-minute walk to get there, and it turns out to be a complete bust.
Yeah,
You're like, damn. In the e-bike, I can be there in 5 minutes and say yep or no. And it's a game changer when it comes to extending your life of the day
yeah.
out there in the field researching. I think everybody should get an e-bike if you're in a place where you can use them.
Yeah, I love them. Absolutely love them. I think they're the perfect use of electric. You know,
Have you?
I don't know if that electric's so good for cars because cars are so big and heavy, but they
Yeah.
sure work. It sure works great for bikes.
And these e-bikes, mine, I bought it off the guy who had chihuahuas, so he put his two chihuahuas in this little metal basket in the back.
Mm,
I just put my equipment back there. You throw in another battery, and you can go quite a ways. An extra battery,
yeah.
you can go quite a ways and just have a real good day. But when you guys are out, what do you make of? Do you even see tree structures?
Oh
And
yeah.
what's your thoughts on the tree structures?
I've got a lot of thoughts on them. I'll just tell you one example, one story. I was talking to my nephew, who's a slight interest in the topic, and I was just explaining to him about. We were talking one day about tree structures, and he goes, "God, yeah." And I was explaining to him where you can find them because I can kind of predict where they're going to be. I'll look for a power line cut, railroad track, a stream, And that's where they all kind of come together. There'll be a tree structure within 100 yards of where they all intersect. And, I'm just talking for my area. I don't know how that's different in Florida or some other states. But here, this is where you find them. And
Here
sure as
sometimes,
shit. So I gave him
yeah.
all these locations. I said, well, if you want to be boots on the ground and, really dig around in the forest, and I'll give you these areas where I see all these intersections. Sure enough, he found a tree structure at each one on this little treasure hunt he went on over a period of a week. In the last one he found, he said, God, Doug, he said, there's like 3 inches of water where this thing was built in the middle of the forest in water. And he said, yeah. He said that last one really convinced him that there's something building these things.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of in a swamp. I mean, what person's going to build a tree structure in standing water that's been there 100 years in a swamp?
Yeah.
It's just unlikely. But anyhow, so that's an example. But I believe that you need water. If you find a tree structure, there's got to be water within 500 yards. It's going to be. It's my. I think they build them as blinds. I don't think they sleep in them. I think they're just hunting blinds to break up their outline. And I find them often by deer trails. So if I can find a deer trail, a stream, a power line cut, a railroad track, I know for sure there's going to be a tree structure. And sure hell yeah, I was doing. It's almost like 100%.
Yeah. Here in Ocala, we came across a really good hotspot that we found because we saw it looked like Bobby described it really good. It looked like 2 transformers were in the woods and had a fight and just tore the hell out of everything. Trees that were 3 or 4 feet off the high were snapped.
Okay.
All kinds of debris. There were structures, and then there was an X, and this trackway of prints walked up to the X on the right side of the X, and then it took a left turn, went to the front, went around the back of it, and then the track disappeared behind the X. Now it broke off everything in its path up to this X. It could have just walked through this X and knocked it over, but it went around it as if this thing had a purpose and it had a meaning, this X. And that the thing about this X was both of the trees that made the X were stabbed into the ground. They weren't fell over. We always check when we see structures. Did this come out of a treetop? Was this the top of a tree? These things were stabbed into the ground 4 or 5, some of them 6 inches. It's like the X's mean something, just like they all probably mean something. But at first I always thought that the X's were danger, keep out, blah, 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 but for me, I'm humanizing them. I would never put a keep out sign on my front door. I'd put it on the edge of my property, just stay back, or whatever. But what I noticed inside of all this destruction, Bobby noticed it too, was inside of all this destruction of all these trees broken down, there were lots of hog activity too. Lots and lots of hog activity.
Yeah, which has got to be it's got to be a great food source.
Right. So I started thinking my theory with the X's was my theory is and all these broken down trees laying all over the place are obstacles. And if you're a hunter at night and you're trying to corral something somewhere, all the trees look the same at night. They look the same. They're all going up. But if you can see at night, what looks different than all of this is this.
Right. Yeah.
And for me, I was thinking that this was a kind of a not a choke point, but a corral them here because this is where all the debris is.
Or a confusion point, a point of confusion.
Yeah.
For deer.
But in that same area, I don't know how many 3-toed prints we found.
Wow.
And here is the very first cast that we pulled out of the Ocala National Forest.
Well, that's weird as I'll get out. Okay.
Yeah,
good night, everybody.
We weren't.
I don't want to meet that thing.
No, it's 17 inches from heel to toe, 10 inches across, and was it 7 inches across the heel. And we found a
Is there
17 inch.
any indication that those were two toes that were kind of together, like
No,
it was splayed?
no, because we got 15-inch and 13-inch prints casted as well.
Okay,
All
so
three toes.
you're pretty sure it had three toes.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Every
we
single
have-
one of our tracks.
Have you ever
Yeah.
sent that to Jeff or even a photo of it?
No,
No,
but he's
but-
gonna be on. Oh, go ahead, Bob. Say it.
He's going to be on in a couple of weeks.
Well, good. You're definitely going to want to
Wednesday
show
the
it.
21st. But
Yeah.
no, we
26th. Yeah.
the 26th.
I just had a 2-hour conversation with him yesterday or the day
We
before.
have 3 different sizes of those 3-toed prints. They all came from the same general area.
That's weird.
So,
What are your
so
thoughts? I want to
Well,
hear your thoughts on these
my
three-toed.
thoughts is
They're unconventional.
I don't know what it is, but there's something out
Good
there
answer.
that's a family unit that has 3 toes.
Huh.
I mean, that's
Well,
what we've told. We weren't even. We were heck. We didn't even want to show people because this wasn't what we were expecting.
there's a word that comes to mind, and it's like inbred.
Right.
Could be.
Well, this is also about a mile and a half south of a bombing range. It's in the middle of Ocala National Forest.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And so right in that same area, our exact spot, we also shared our spot with a lady named Kathy Westerman. And she went in there one day and took some pictures, and she got an amazing picture that looks like a juvenile squatting down. I mean, it looks like a really, really good, real picture of a juvenile squatting down. And she wasn't even aware of that. She was taking pictures of structures and stuff. And I wish I had that picture to show you, but you could.
Let me see that. I want to see that footprint again. It's fascinating.
And all of them have this. All of them have this weird, bigger knot right here,
Yeah.
and it goes smaller.
What detail is at the end of the toes?
Overpour. This is our very first time pouring the cast.
Okay.
So this right here is overpour to down to
Okay.
here, and then
Gotcha.
this part right here is overpour. This flooding out of the toe, overpour. Very first time mixing plaster in my life. And we did
Is
it
that
out there
made
in
of
the woods.
hydrocal?
No, it is what is it, Bob? It's the basic plaster.
It's just basic
Plaster of Paris?
Yes, plaster of Paris.
Yeah, well, you guys should get hydrocal because it's pretty bulletproof.
This toe, God, I wish you could get the gist of that. This toe right here. It is so human-like.
It feels just like if you were to reach down and rub from the side.
Yeah.
Start at the
Here.
top of your
Yeah,
big toe and rub down and around.
Yeah, it looks like toe pads.
exactly what it
Yeah.
feels like. Yeah.
It is insane. We didn't
I
know
don't know
what
what
to
to
do with
think.
this.
Yeah,
didn't either.
I don't know what you think. There are footprints at times that just look freaking ridiculous.
Yeah.
They just are so off the norm, and they're found by credible people. I can think of several examples of footprints that just don't fit the norm, and in many cases, people don't want to show them.
Right.
I don't think that's the right approach. You're definitely going to want to show them.
We struggled with
because-
that decision at first because it wasn't the norm.
Yeah, you
know?
don't want people laughing at you and going, "Oh,
Right.
yeah, they fake Jimmy and Bobby fake those because they're so weird." If you're going to fake a print, you wouldn't fake anything that good.
No, you're going to make it look really good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I found that picture of Kathy's that she took right there in the
Mm.
same area we got
Mhm.
that. I'm going to try to pull it up here and see if it.
Well, I can tell you this: I do not want to meet whatever made those footprints.
No, neither do I. If you can put that in the
Jeez.
middle, Bob, and blow that up. Neither do I, because Doug, I couldn't stab that much of my finger in the substrate. It was all packed with sand, pine needles, sticks, pine cones, palmettos, just years and years and years of stuff. I couldn't stomp an impression, and these
Yeah.
prints were about 1.5 to 1.75 inches.
So, what do you estimate this thing weighed?
No clue. I could not tell you. Can you large that up, Bob, at all? Like
I can
Yeah.
see it really good.
That's the best I can do with
I
it.
can see it perfect.
That was right there in the exact spot, probably within yards of where we pulled casts.
Do you have a wider shot of that particular?
No, but the lady who took it has the whole photo.
Mm.
That's just a little zoomed in spot of the photo.
You can, I mean, you can see the ear, you can see
Yeah,
the eyes, you can see the nose, the upper
Yeah,
cheeks.
no, I'm
Yeah,
looking at it. And of course, the problem is with any of these kinds of things, it could be there's so many patterns that make a face.
yeah,
I have this really unique shower with this ceramic tile, these big ceramic tile pieces, and there's like Bigfoots throughout the whole thing. There's like kind of that looks like a Bigfoot.
yeah.
So you got to be careful.
Pareidolia is real, man.
Yeah, pareidolia is a real thing. And
we'll
so all
we'll
you can do
email
is go, "What's interesting? We don't know for sure it's a Bigfoot, but it could be."
Yeah.
we'll email that to you where you can see it
Yeah.
in its full size.
Well, even if it's like exact and it's
Ah.
got even eyelashes, you still don't know for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It could still be a root end or a tree that got blown over in the
But-
wind.
unlike most pictures,
you froze up. Bob.
pictures are zoomed in to the point where you can't see anything. All the leaves are blurry. That
Yeah.
picture's crisp.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
But my ceramic tile's crisp too. You should see.
exactly.
It's like they're so exact. I mean, there's one on there that looks just like the pattern, but it's just random shit. It's
Yeah.
So it could be. That's what I hate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
I don't
could
like
be.
pictures that could be a juvenile, like you said, or it could be just a root ball.
yes,
Yeah.
As long as there's that little bit of chance it's one or the other, it becomes interesting, but not scientifically plausible.
yeah. So,
we need clear close up, like out in the open.
Yeah.
Anything not out in the open is kind of suspect of being something, in the name of a root ball or a tree trunk or something.
right.
So, just look at any Nat Geo photos of animals. That's what we need of a Bigfoot.
Right.
And we need
100%.
sequential.
100%.
And sequential. Because, man, we're all going to be battling this AI thing.
Oh, this AI is terrible right now.
It's going to drive us all daft.
Sunday, when Bobby and I were in the woods, that's the reason I brought up the structure, because Bobby found something that, so we've always found these trees in Ocala stabbed into the ground. We never could find where they come from because there's no treetops broke off. They're just stabbed into the ground. You pull them out, inches and inches of sand beneath them. But they're always the size of softball bats and baseball bats, or maybe just a little bit bigger, Bob, right? Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, about a 3 to 4 inch diameter. Usually.
Yeah. And so Bobby found one that was pulled out of the ground and then sat down and then picked up and sat down again. And then the base of it was drug across the sand. It was drug about 10 feet and leaned up against another tree. The same size. We can play that video if you like, whenever you get a second, if you're interested in seeing that. If anybody's out there is interested in seeing that.
Yeah, no, that'd be fun.
Go. So you'll be able to see. I point out where it came from. It got plucked out of, and then it was pulled out, and then looked like it was tried to stick it back in the ground again. Then it drug it, then tried to stick it back in the ground again. Then it drug it about another
Then it
8
drug
feet.
it about 4 feet. It looked like it was dragging it as it was pushing it up to prop it onto the tree branch that it was propped against, like it was dragging the base, but clear drag marks.
Yeah, from the last hole where it looked like it tried to stick it in the ground to where it rested was like probably close to 8 feet, I would say.
Yeah.
Wow.
You'll see the video. It is, but we found it. I'm like, we've always wondered where, but this is fingerprints, basically the drag mark of this exact tree being plucked out of the ground and drug and stabbed into the ground again, and then just finally drug and rested.
Well, we know what it isn't.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was at least 30 yards off a trail to where we couldn't see it from the road.
That's really interesting.
I'm-
I have not found a tree that's been uprooted and jammed, or a stick that's been jammed in the ground up here. It's a totally different behavior that seems to happen a lot more up in British Columbia.
Yeah.
I've heard it in other people have mentioned it in Florida and down south. It seems to be like some other kind of behavior.
We find it often when we find it.
all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
You can look at them and you can be. I've done it a couple times. Jim the other day. I'm like, hey, $10 out and stabbed in the ground. You walk in there and pick it up.
Do you
And it's
guys do you
stabbed in
guys
the
have
ground.
photos of one of those?
Oh, we got a video.
Yeah,
Oh,
of,
cool.
yeah. I'll show
that's
you
what I
the
was going to
video
play.
of the drag mark one.
What are we looking at, Bob?
Well, we got this tree here. When
How tall do you think that tree is? 40 feet?
40 feet, 45 feet.
Way up there. Let me zoom in just a smidge more. It goes way up there and beyond. And back. Comes all the way down.
Come down to the base here.
Down to the base.
Road. Across here.
It was stopped and stopped.
Mm-hmm.
It
It
was
was like it was shoved in here and shoved in here. But that was clearly drug over there.
I don't know where it actually. It looks like it came from right there. Right there.
Yeah.
And what do you think that is? 10 feet?
8 to 10 feet.
From there, it was drugged. Stopped.
Pretty interesting.
We'd never seen any evidence of any of them being drugged. They're just stabbed in the ground. In places where you can't put your finger in the ground, there's trees that are this big around or bigger that are shoved in 5-6 inches.
Why do you guys think they're stabbing sticks in? What are they trying to accomplish?
I don't know.
What are your theories?
No clue.
Don't know.
I wouldn't even guess. No clue. I mean, it doesn't make. If in order, I don't know.
Is it possible they're trying to make like a fence, like a little bit of
No.
a fence to not corral animals, but chase them into this obstacle?
Possible? That
Or just have
Because
something
usually-
handy to beat something
we-
with.
we usually find in small area. It's like you find an area, you find 4 or 5 things that it's like, yeah, this ain't natural. You find treetops that are spanned across 15 feet up in the air, held up by 2 little twigs.
Yeah.
That fell from a tree somewhere, but you look around and you can't find a tree missing a treetop. So here's 30 feet of tree that you can't figure out where it came from. It's
What
like
part of Florida are you guys in?
most of that is in the Ocala National.
Okay.
Um,
I've done research in there. It's a tough place to do research.
It is a tough
It
place.
sucks.
a lot
Not
of-
gonna lie.
Even the plants have thorns.
Yeah. Yeah. Bob, check your email of the footprint that we found just yards away from the drag of the tree. It was just yards away. The imprint's probably 10 and a half, 11 inches long. It's about 5.5 inches wide at the toe and about 4 inches at the heel. You'll see the impression. But the bad thing about pictures when you're looking at impressions and prints is you just don't see a fifth of what's actually there, the detail and whatnot. But if anybody that's ever looked at prints and impressions, you'll be able to see this without anything being circled or whatnot. But this was just
you guys walk some of the sand-lined streams and creeks, which I would imagine are beautiful. I would imagine there's some pretty clean water and a lot of
there's
the,
not a whole lot
No.
of creeks and streams in the Ocala National Forest. You'll get some
okay.
some lakes and some the Blue Sink and some marsh water that's just set when it rains or whatnot. There are certain places. Is this what is it? St. John's River, Bob? Is that what it is?
Yeah,
Or
St.
does
John's River, and then there's the
Ocklawaha
Ocklawaha
River?
River, which I have found a couple of pretty cool structures along the Ocklawaha
Yeah.
River. There's your
But-
point, Jeremy.
Yeah, but you can see where the toes are and where the heels are if you've seen print impressions before.
Some packed down duff. That's a lot
Yeah.
of packed down duff there.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and you can see the imprint.
Yeah,
But
see
that was
it.
just yards away from where that tree was drugged, and that there was a couple, but that was the most defined.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
But there are things out there that for people with less experience that can see what looks like a structure, and can see what looks like a print. If you're not that experienced, there's the bear double steps. Mother Nature with tree fall makes a lot of weird things. I mean, if you're a little bit experienced, it's easy to rule a lot of stuff out. But down here in the scrub area, there is this thing called horsehair fungus.
Yeah,
It
I see
it
a lot of that.
and it'll fool anybody, and it's fooled some seasoned veterans in the research field.
Well, you can tell a horsehair fungus from a hair. It's very brittle. Usually,
Yeah.
it breaks.
Yeah,
If you try to bend it where a hair will not break if you bend it, but
I mean,
that
for Bobby and
fungus-
I, when we first went out, Doug, we had pockets full of this stuff. We thought we hit the gold mine. We thought there was. I literally said the words, "Is there a Squatch out here going through chemo? Where is all this hair coming from?" And finally, we had so much of it that I'm like, "This isn't
Something
adding
right.
up. Something's not
Yeah.
right. We shouldn't be finding this much hair."
Yeah,
And Bobby did a little bit of research and found out what it was. And then I was like, "Well, damn!" I had my phone with me, and I had no other place to put stuff, so I actually took my case off, and put some hair behind my phone in my case as just a collection. I mean, I'm like thinking of what I could think of. I'm pretty resourceful, but I'm also dumb, and but there's a lot of things out there that will fool you if you're not that experienced, and with the tree pulled out of the ground and then dragged and then leaned up against another tree, the imprint, we can't say what that print is. We can't say that a Bigfoot did it, but we can narrow down what didn't. It wasn't a bear, it wasn't a deer, it wasn't a coon, wasn't a kangaroo, an aardvark, none of that stuff. Coon.
I think I disagree. I think it could have been an aardvark. There are some researchers that say, well, it could have been anything. No, it's really small list of what it could have been. Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes more sense to think that a Sasquatch did that than somebody hoping in a 1 in a billion chance that somebody wandered off the trail just to find this tree that hopefully the wind didn't knock down and have a drag mark after it was pulled out of the ground. It makes more sense to think that it was a Sasquatch than somebody trying to hoax somebody not knowing where they would be in 360,000 acre forest.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the weirdest sound that you guys have ever heard down there?
I haven't heard anything.
I haven't heard anything here in Ocala. No, Bobby lives in Denellen, which is up on close to the Gulf.
Yeah.
And I live in Port St. Lucie, which is like 2.5 hours south of Daytona, 2.5 hours north of Miami. But where my research is down here is southwest of Lake Okeechobee. And I get knocks a lot. I mean, in the same place, just knocks. We've had, if you're familiar with Carrie Arnold,
Oh yeah, of
Bigfoot
course.
Odyssey, we were a part of Carrie Arnold's first expedition 168.
Okay.
And we had gotten vocalizations. We had stuff thrown at us. We were chasing stuff. We had stuff on parabolics that was breathing like 20-second inhales and 20-second exhales that was just out of sight, and it sounded like a steamroller going really slow, just stuff moving. That's what it sounded like in here, in my parabolic. But Mikey, other guy on our team, I'm like, Mike, I can hear something breathing in my headphone in the parabolic. He's like, shut up, Jim, I can hear it without him. We've had a lot of interesting stuff go on down here near Indiantown. in Florida, southeast of Lake Okeechobee. There's a spot down here where they almost seem kind of trapped because civilization is encroaching on them through farmland and building and whatnot. They're never really going to be trapped, but when you look at it on a map, they look like they're trapped.
Yeah, they definitely need like some kind of a corridor to get in and get out.
Yeah,
Usually it's a stream or it could be a power line cut, could be a railroad track. That's all they need. They don't need
yeah,
much,
right.
but they got to have a way to punch in and punch out.
hmm I think they have that. It's just they're going to be doing it in the cover of night.
Yeah. So where do you think the area in Florida that has the most sightings, the most Bigfoot activity? And I'm always curious, is there stuff way down, like south of Alligator Alley? What is that, Highway 41 down there?
Yeah, in the Everglades.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in the true Everglades. Is there any sightings down there?
Yeah, I mean, well, Dave Shealy has a Bigfoot Skunk Ape headquarters down there.
Yeah.
And there's been sightings down there. I think that I've heard report. Carrie did a report of a couple sightings in the Keys, I believe. Was it, Bob?
Really?
I think so.
I think it was on 168 newspaper article clippings of sightings in the Keys.
As far as BFRO has listed sightings, Marion County, which would encompass most of the Ocala National Forest, does have the most sightings in Florida. And I think it was seconded by maybe Polk County, which is like one county north of where I'm at.
And I think Martin County is like 4 or 5, which is down here where I'm at by Lake Okeechobee.
Yeah. Martin County has some.
It's just west of West Palm Beach. Literally, just they're building into, they're encroaching on their land.
So you guys drive all over Florida. Holy crap.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah,
Every time we get together, one of us has to put in a run down.
yeah. One of us has to put in a 3-hour straight trip, 6-hour round trip. Bobby has the Kubota, so it's usually me doing the driving. We'll get a lot more done on the Kubota.
Well, but if we go down there, the areas we go down there, we can't use the Kubota.
Yeah, and it's
So
easier
then
to
that
traverse
ends
a
up
little bit.
being me driving.
Yeah. I like this area down here because there's no ticks.
I've never gotten a tick in Florida.
You ain't
Ocala.
been to Ocala.
In Ocala, Doug, I've drove 3+ hours to get there, only to be 10 minutes into the woods to say, nope, I'm going home. When you take 10 steps into the woods and you've got 100 ticks up to your waist, at that point,
that sounds like Minnesota.
You're no longer looking for Bigfoot. You're been trying to prevent Lyme disease. And then you feel
horrible.
them everywhere. I get home, and then 4 days later, I see a tick inside my truck, and I'm like, dang, there's these. I'm never gonna get rid of these ticks. They're gonna be on me forever. I found them 3 days on me after taking a shower, under my toe, right here. It was under my toe. After 3 days and showers, one day I was in the shower, and I'm like, what is that? Wiping my foot down, and there was a tick. I lost my mind.
Oh God,
I felt
the
all
worst
over me after that.
The worst wood ticks I've ever had was when I went down for Discovery Channel down to Belize, in the jungles of Belize, and we were with the Prime Minister of Archaeology there, and we were going into a bunch of unexplored caves looking for Mayan artifacts. And so we're going right through the jungle, with the machetes. We've got a team of special forces guys. We have porters. He's right out of a Tarzan movie, and they're macheting, but we are covered in ticks. We have them in our eyelids.
Wow.
That is just.
And there's no way to get them out. When you're in the jungle and you're on a track, you're going, 10 miles to get to a cave opening that they've got marked on GPS, and you're covered in ticks. You can't take the time and slow 30 people on. So you just let them, and they burrow in, right? And they burrow in. So then at night, we would get back at like 2 a.m, and where we had a mirror or whatever, we could start pulling ticks off, and they would bleed. Each one would bleed really bad. And there was one guy I was with. He was like, I'll just pull them off in the morning, right? Every day he said that. And in the morning, he was just ripping out chunks of flesh.
Oh,
But we'd have, and I'm not exaggerating, 600 ticks on us.
yeah.
So
Oh,
I got back home, and I came down with a rare. I don't know if it's that rare, but I came down with Rocky Mountain spotted fever,
Yeah, Lyme disease.
rickettsia.
Yeah.
And I was so sick, and it took them a month to diagnose me. And I've never had headaches like this. They had to put me on steroids and all sorts of crap to try to control the pain I was in. And then when they found out what it was, rickettsia, they immediately just gave me Doxy. And I felt good in 3 days again. But it was all from those ticks down in Belize. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
It's just not something you think about when you go down to South America thinking you're going to get covered in these little tiny wood ticks.
Yeah.
Are they tiny and small there in Florida?
They start out small. Well, the ones that were on me one day, I walked past this pine sapling. It was this tall. And then just a minute later, my feet were itching, and I pulled my sock down, and it looked like pepper was on my feet, but it was moving around. They were the size of little pepper flakes.
Yeah.
And then by the time I got to the truck, they were in my pits. They were up my waist. It was, and my wife got to see up and close personal parts of me in the mirror with the lights on because she was depicting me. It was
okay.
Yeah, it was not a moment I was proud of. I don't think my wife wanted to be a part of it too, but my wife says he gets a tick check when he gets home. But yeah, we don't do the ticks. I don't do the ticks. I'd rather fight a bear to the death and then have to get ticks on me.
My son, we were out doing research, and he was with another guy, and they got into a hornet's nest of wood ticks. They go back. We were staying at a hotel. We were doing a TV pilot, and we got back, and so Jim and Blaine picked off hundreds of wood ticks, and they put them in a cup, and they covered the cup. Well, they got out. Hundreds of wood ticks got out in the hotel room. They just left the hotel room, and I'm thinking those poor next guests.
Yeah.
That check into this hotel room thinking they're. And he said we just booked out of there, man. I'm like, oh God, that was mean.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, Doug, man, I appreciate you coming on here and hanging out with us and spending some time with us.
Fun.
You got any big projects coming up? Anything coming up? Anything?
Well, I'm working on Legend Meet Science 2. We're still filming. Yeah, it's kind of a slow process, especially this time of year. But we're waiting now on some final results on samples, DNA, and some other things. But we're examining, many new categories of evidence. So I'm hoping that we end up getting some really cool results because the technology for DNA is so much better than it was. And I recently acquired some really fresh blood samples that were taken care of properly. And so I've got some hope on that too. And we've got like 8 samples of freshly coagulated blood that looks like, from all the evidence that this didn't come from a person or any other animals. So once again,
that's exciting.
Yeah, that's all we can do. I don't know if you've seen Legend Meet Science 1.
I think so.
But that's the doc I did that Jeff wrote, the companion book. And so Jeff is currently working on Legend Meet Science 2 book also. So there'll be a book that'll be released with the doc, and it's just a huge amount of work. It's not like doing a Monster Quest where they give you you have 2 weeks to deliver the show. It's kind of like, well, the longer waiting. There's been more evidence that has come in, but on the same token, I didn't expect it would take this long to get scientific conclusions. So, but
Yeah.
that's what I'm doing.
Do you have a expected or time frame of when you
I'm
think?
hope.
I'm
Well,
not rushing.
certainly,
I'm just
yeah. It's going
hey,
to be.
just
It'll be released before this coming fall season.
oh cool.
So I'm hoping this fall it'll all be released. It'll probably be a 3-part. Looks like 3 1-hour docs. It's a 3-part film, whatever you want to call it.
Will it be on a network or a YouTube?
I don't know exactly yet. I'm not sure I want it on a network, but it'll certainly be streaming like on Hulu or wherever.
Okay, cool.
So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
yep. Everybody will have access to it.
That's great.
So that's all I know.
I don't know. That's awesome, man.
All right.
It was great to have you on. I
Yeah, it was
appreciate you
great
taking
meeting you
time out
guys.
of your evening. You're even cooler than I was told. I was told you were like super cool. I think you're cooler than that.
Well, thank you. I don't think of myself as cool. I think I'm just an old, achy old man at this point in my life.
Yeah, we're
I
all
got a little
achy
bit of
too.
kick left in me here yet, so a little
Yeah,
more
that's good.
adventure.
That's good, and we'll be
But-
watching for it too.
Yeah, no, it's
but-
great meeting you guys.
Yeah, thank you for coming out. Thanks for everybody in the chat, everybody that stopped by to say hi and take your time to spend with us and just enjoy the evening. Sit down with a good chat. From myself, it was a pleasure having you on.
Yeah, well, get a
I
hold
look
of me.
forward to it.
Absolutely.
Yep, we'll get you on. We'll get you on Untold Radio AM. Sounds good.
Right on. I know that next week we got Mike Miller. He was on. He was on Terror in the Woods season 1 when it was out. When his encounter, Ohio Night Stalkers was the group he was in. On next Thursday, I believe at 8 p.m. And then the 26th will be Wednesday after next. We're having Jeff Meldrum on.
Great.
And so, we got some really good shows lined up with some great people. All of our people we've had on have been great. We like having good people on with great discussion. And you didn't let us down.
Well, good night, everybody. And it was a blast. We'll talk soon, guys.
Thanks, Doug, man. I really appreciate you being here. Everybody, thank you so much for hanging out with us.